the Buddhist path. So, all right, we start. I've changed things up just because I'm a pain. I like to start with the 4 measurables on page 34. I don't know who's doing the prayers. Am I doing them? You doing them? Nana's doing them. Nana, if you go to page 34 in the prayer book. And it's up on the screen as well, if you could read that far. But first, all right, so let's take a moment before we read anything to so this is a good thing to do in advance. So if you notice they're not out, please feel free to put them out, anybody who's comfortable here. So I'll add that to the 2-minute warning, getting water and turning off the cell phones and putting away the cookies and getting out the books. I'll add that.
I'm sorry.
You can do whatever you like.
There's front row seats right over here, Vesna. Blind. Thank you.
Yeah, we should all practice the, okay, now everybody move 1 seat over. Yeah. So really, let's take a moment to get grounded in your seat, in your decision to be here. And relax, breathe. Breathe into the sitting here. And try to remember the reason you came. And we want to try to generate a positive motivation for being here. So we had an intention to come and we were here. So that intention's finished. We fulfilled that intention. So now we want to set an intention for the time spent here. So I was rereading one of Lama Zopa Rinpoche's. I'm Tendron, by the way, if you don't know me. That doesn't really tell you anything, but it's my label, Tendron. But Lama Zopa Rinpoche, who's the spiritual director of these centers for long time, and passed away a while ago. Just a little while ago. So he wrote, well, they're transcriptions of his teachings that have been edited into books. So the one I'm reading from is called The Door to Satisfaction. And it's how he opens the book. It's the, it's the motivation he set for us to kind of practice how to set a motivation. And for most of this is way too advanced, it's like up there. But I just think it's lovely, so it's lovely to read these words and to realize they're people who are always thinking this way and that we can become one of those people. So generate the motivation. This is just an invitation, not an order. That by hearing each word of this teaching, you will be able to realize the whole path to enlightenment, especially bodhicitta. Bodhicitta is the wish to become enlightened for the benefit of all sentient beings. Pray for this to happen immediately and for you to be able to cause this to happen also for all sentient beings. Pray that each word of this teaching subdues immediately the minds of other sentient beings. Pray that the whole path to enlightenment, especially bodhicitta, is generated in the minds of all sentient beings. Hearing this teaching benefits your own mind, and later, because of having heard it, you will be able to benefit others. So right off the bat, he's helping us shift our focus from whatever personal reason we have for showing up, whatever's about me, to trying to bring in our community of human beings, the whole, all living beings everywhere. And to recognize that it's just lovely to try to work on your own mind. It's the only way we can benefit others, is to have a mind of peacefulness and wisdom ourselves. It's the only way to have world peace, is with each of us generate, cultivate the kind of mind that wants to do no harm, that only wants to benefit. So we want to use our time well. So whatever reason that you came, for whatever reason, doesn't matter, curiosity, because someone made you, that probably matters. But you're doing it, if someone made you, you're doing it to help them. You're doing it because they've asked you to do it. You're doing it to benefit them in some way. You may not understand why that might benefit them, but you're keeping them company on their journey. So just try as best you can to just generate the wish that this time will benefit your own mind and that it will ripple out to benefit others. So we'll recite the 4 immeasurables to cement that, sort of. Is that the right word? Okay. May all sentient beings have happiness and the causes of happiness. May all sentient beings be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. May all sentient beings be inseparable from the happiness that is free from suffering. We have to catch up. The screen has to catch up. There we go. May all sentient beings abide in equanimity, free from attachment for friends and hatred for enemies. This is again this reminder to develop, the immeasurable mind of love and compassion, of equanimity, of joy for others' happiness. And then there she goes, she's on it. Okay, so those of you who are comfortable reciting the refuge prayer, I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By the merits I create through listening to the Dharma, may I become a Buddha in order to benefit all sentient beings. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By the merits I create through listening to the Dharma, may I become a Buddha in order to benefit all sentient beings. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By the merits I create through listening to the Dharma, may I become a Buddha in order to benefit all sentient beings. Thank you. Thanks, Nana.
Happy birthday.
Who snuck that in? So yeah, I've sort of been celebrating my birthday all week. So I got on the scale this morning. I've gained a pound.
Just one?
Just one. I've used some.
Happy birthday.
Thank you.
Many, many more.
Yeah, there's probably not so many left. So that's it. So, you know, I saw this thing that Eddie Murphy did somewhere. And he was talking about how, okay, so basically, you know, in our lives, I mean, at the time he was saying this, you know, anyway, you know, we have 75 birthdays. You know, that's not very many. 75. Well, I figured if I lived 12 more years, if I have 12 more birthdays, you know, that'd be pretty good. I'll be 80. You know, it's like, whoa, this really does happen to you. It's really true, you know? So it's just this, you know, but it's this interesting thing. So whether we live to be 80 or 100, that's just 100 birthdays. You know, if we think about, 100 days till, you know, my vacation, that's not so many, you know, it's like, so we want to put our lives in perspective. If you could keep that on, yeah, thank you. You're on it. Yeah, because last week's recordings got everybody because I didn't know what I was doing. I don't know how to spotlight myself. There was no help here last week, so I was it. Okay, I digress. My best thing. So 100. You know, we want to really take that in. That we don't have a whole lot of time. So we want to make sure the time we have, it's fulfilling us in some way. You know, that it's something we can look back on, you know, and kind of go, oh yeah, that wasn't a waste of time. You know, because I can assure you, if, you know, as you age and as you get closer to the time of death, you know, with that's just inevitable, not the kind, you know, we don't know if we're going to die today, you know, and that could also happen, but it's just, you know, this, that's not mine, is it? No. That's my ring. Yeah, well, because it's what shows up.
Everybody could turn their phones off. That would be...
I already announced that. You just didn't listen.
Somebody else apparently.
And it's usually me, because mine will do that too, except most people don't call me. So 100. So as we get, you know, like if you get sick and realize, oh, this is it, you know, the doctor goes, sorry, nothing we can do for you. This is it. You're going to start thinking about time you wasted, you know, and that's a waste of time. So don't do that. So, you know, but we really want to manage better, you know, just so that we can remember. So when we're caught in something and we're bored or we're thinking, oh, why do I keep doing this? Stop. You know, it's time to leave. You know, it's time to turn off the TV. We don't do that anymore. Do you even know what that is? You young folks. I used to have knobs. That's just so funny. Yeah, there are no knobs. No, I've had that experience. Don't lose your remote. The best way to avoid wasting our time is to take the time to set intentions for your activities, you know, to think about what you're doing, to kind of look at it going, okay, what am I doing today? How can I make that more meaningful? It's not that actually anything in your schedule has to change. It's really about What mind am I bringing to it? You know? So like, for an example, you know, if you decide that you want to spend the evening just, you know, vegging out in front of the TV because you're tired or whatever, you know, if you realize while you're doing that, we all need rest. So there's nothing wrong with rest. But if, you know, while you're doing that, you realize I am now bored or I'm rested enough. That's your chance to stop that activity and do something else. You know, it's okay to revise, to go, oh yeah, this isn't working. You know, let's change it. But it requires us being observant about what's going on with ourselves, you know, where we can actually go, oh, you know, this isn't, you know, this is going to be one of those moments that I'll look back on going, oh, this is a waste of time, you know. So, and I have many of those moments, you know, this is a bit, but we really want to recognize that we can be aware of those moments and change the next moment. Do something to make the next moment different than that. And the more we do this, the more it becomes a habit, the more we just think this way, because it's now our habit. Our habit's not just thinking about, oh, you know, when's the workday going to end? When can my playtime begin? When does the playtime can begin so I can sleep now? You know, whatever. I mean, we're just constantly on to the, okay, when does this end? And when does the next thing start? You know? And we want to actually experience what's going on, see if it's, you know, if our mind is, if it fits our mind. Is it going to benefit us? Is it going to benefit others? Is it meaningful? How can I make it meaningful? So the Buddha taught that basically everything is a creation from our minds. You know, so our minds are really important. We don't have control over what's happening from external sources, you know. We don't have control over what mood other people around us are in, where their minds are. We don't have control over what events arise during the day, like the flat tire or the boss being upset about something or having to redo something or, you know, whatever, getting sick. You know. We don't have control about any of those things. They, you know, they happen, you know, but we do have control over how we respond to whatever happens. And this is the work. This is where we can do the work and be successful. Instead of trying to control everything outside of ourselves, of our minds, including our bodies, you know, I don't know what age it becomes, you know, like, oh yeah, I can't control that. Just like, you know, it's just sort of like, oh, that too now does not work. You know? So, you know, but we can learn how to make the best of whatever's happening. And the Buddha taught that really the easiest way to make the best of everything happening, of everything that happens, is to think about how you can benefit others. How can I take this opportunity and benefit others? And getting in the habit of always trying to think in terms of how can I benefit others? You know, so one of those things, you know, like often I'll get a question right away about, you know, yeah, but what if you're overdoing your benefit? Well, what's the answer to that? How can you benefit others when you've been overdoing? Yes, you can stop overdoing. What can you do instead of overdoing? R-E-S-T?
Rest.
Rest. You know, we can rest. We have limitations. You know, hopefully one day we won't have any limitations, but right now we have limitations. We need to recognize our limitations and not beat ourselves up for them. You know, not feel like, oh, you know, I shouldn't feel that way. It's just the fact. We need rest. And the more we allow ourselves to observe when we're going too far in the direction of, I just tweaked my arm, too far of extending ourselves, and we just don't have any more energy towards that, you know, so that we start to rest sooner rather than later. We reach burnout stage, you know, then we kind of stop everything, you know, and that's, you know, and then, you know, so we flip-flop. So we want to find, you know, our balance, and that changes. So the key is just to keep observing you. What's going in my mind? You know, am I starting to get really impatient with everybody? What's that a clue about? You know, maybe I need to read more Dharma. You know, maybe I need to try to not do 17 chores in one day. So we need to recognize, you know, so it's all about observing. And a lot of times we have to observe what's going on in the body. That will be our first clue. Our body is feeling the stress or the, you know, we can kind of go, oh, you know, I'm holding a lot of tension here, you know, wherever, you know, that means it's time to take a moment to relax the body. That doesn't take long. To just bring your awareness to the different parts of your body that are tense, you know, and just go, oh, been having to practice this week because I've been going to physical therapy for my shoulder. And, you know, they're always going, now relax your muscles around. And I'm going, yeah, what is that like? You know, these muscles, these, I mean, they're very well practiced at, you know, protecting my everything else, you know, it's just crazy. But actually, when you just turn your mind to it and just go, oh yeah, I am holding that tight, it will relax. You don't have to actually do anything except bring your mind to it. It's very interesting. I remember in teachings, they talk about how, you know, that you know, if you put your finger on a stick of butter, you don't have to do anything. It will melt, you know, because of the heat. When we bring our attention, our mental attention to our body, it's going to respond just like it does when we're tense. You know, our mind is tense, we tighten up our bodies. But normally, you know, because we're not so self-observant, we're not so inner aware, we notice these things first in our body. But if we keep, you know, developing the habit to keep looking, don't forget to look, you know, oh, let's look again. We'll start to be able to catch it before it displays it in the body. You know, we can see from the way the conversation in my mind is going, where we're headed. And we can start to, you know, like, oh, maybe I need to correct my mindset. You know? So this year we've been talking about, you know, we started the year sort of talking about the mind, you know, about all the different states of mind, the fact that the mind is changeable, you know, that we have all these habits of mind that don't serve us well. And if we start to notice, gee, you know, maybe that's not a good habit of mine, we can start to develop a new habit of mind, because this is very doable. Doesn't feel doable when you're working on it, but it is. As we all know, we've changed habits. You know, your teenage mind is not your 20-year-old mind. Your 20s mind is not your 30s mind. You know, we change our attitudes, you know, throughout our lives. So if we try to take charge of the direction our mind changes towards, we can do that too. You know, as opposed to being reactive to things. We're often reactive to our body. You know, we just like, oh, you know, I better not do this. You know, we're always constantly, or we are reactive to events. You know, we try to please everybody, or we try to, you know, control the externals in order to feel better or feel in control or feel like we can handle it or whatever. And that isn't an effective strategy, because we'll never get that right, because we cannot control that. You know? But looking instead at how am I reacting to this in my mind, my heart. This is where the Tibetans point to when they say mind. So it's not a distinction between emotion or intellect. It's just mind, our concepts, our awareness, our perceptions. So then we talked a little bit about, and I know, and I think Venerable Rina talked a little bit about karma, you know, that according to the Buddha's, you know, observation, that everything that arises due to causes and conditions is, first of all, impermanent. Everything changes constantly. You know, even out from our atomic structure, that's changing constantly, to the wear and tear of things, that's changing, you know, and that all of these things are changing constantly. But things that are dependent on causes and conditions also are congruent with those causes. So the results of an action are, you know, kind of make sense to the action. So what I mean by that is, where do mango trees come from? Mango seeds. Can you get anything else from a mango seed?
Arsenic.
Huh? I didn't hear you.
Arsenic.
Okay, so yeah, you can be poisoned by mango seeds. You don't eat them. You know, so, but the point, yeah, because there's arsenic in it, it's a cause for the poisoning. All right, but you can't plant a mango seed and expect an apple tree. Cause and effect are congruent. You know, it's not random. So the Buddha brought in this other thing like, oh, by the way, consciousness matters. Consciousness is the biggest cause of all, because consciousness is what drives our actions of body and speech, and it has results. You know, but a whole lot of causes and conditions come together to ripen those results. So when you plant a mango seed, you have to have all sorts of other things to make it be able to actually produce a mango tree, right? You know, the same thing is true for everything, is that it's not just one thing that has to happen. It's a collection of things that need to happen, you know. So when we set intentions, we need to recognize that it's not just what we do that matters, it's how we do it, why we do it, what we're thinking about when we do it. All of those things are in play, and they have results. We are so habituated to results in our culture, in our society, that we think it's, you know, like this. You know, you do this and this is happening. And it's not like that. Mm-hmm. We just don't see all the conditions that are always having to come together for something to happen. And so the same thing with, you know, what's going to happen with our actions, our mental actions producing results. We don't know enough. We're not observant enough to be able to follow from this cause this result will happen. But we can observe what happens in that moment. So when you're thinking about benefiting others, as we've always said, what are you not thinking about? Yeah, you're not thinking about yourself. How does that help?
You're not suffering.
Why not?
Because you're more concerned about somebody else. Because that's where your focus is. Focus is on somebody else.
Yeah, exactly. So we need to see where we're focusing. You know, if we're focusing on what's not going like we want it to go in our bodies or in the events around us, what do we add to that situation? We add mental suffering. You know, this we have control over. We may not stop it from arising, you know, it'll just arise like, I don't like this, but you know, starts going on. But we can go, oh, this is not helping. Focusing on the fact that, you know, this hurts or that hurts, or I'm not getting what I want, you know, or they didn't have the thing that I wanted to order at this restaurant, blah, blah, blah. If you keep focusing on that, you won't experience anything else that's happening. You'll just be caught up in this miserable state of mind. So even though we can't control the event that arises that we don't like, we can not make it the thing that controls the next moment by either not focusing on it, not worrying about it, not giving it any power at all, you know, or even remembering what is so amazing about that moment. You know? And this is a habit of mind. If we're in the habit of mind of always noticing what's missing for us in any moment, you know, what we'd prefer, what would be better, you know, and not focusing on the fact that, you know, my conditions are great, you know, because we can just, yeah.
So I think that we have to take care of ourselves before we're able to take care of others. So where is the boundary? Where does that begins and ends?
They don't actually, there's no boundary because that they are interdependent. You know, so it's this, you know, it's sort of like reflected in your question. You know, we kind of start, well, I have to take care of myself first before I can help others. Okay, are you sure? Would you say that to the crying baby?
Oh, yes, because I have to be healthy to take care of the crying.
Okay, so now you want to think about, you've actually added another dimension to it. Okay, it isn't that you have to take care of yourself first at the exclusion of everything that's happening. It's sort of like all along we have to take care of ourselves in order to benefit others. That's true. You know, but benefiting others does not interfere with that. You know, so it's not it's not either or. It's always both. You know. So this is why it's so important to think, yeah, please.
Is there a balance?
Of course it's a balance. And that balance changes. That's why we have to be self-aware. Because it depends, doesn't it? You know, what we are capable of today depends on a lot of different factors. And those change. So we can't do the same thing every day and expect the same results. We have to be aware of what's going on for us to be able to modify We have to be aware of what's going on with the people around us in order to modify. You know, so like the crying baby, you don't ignore the crying baby because it's inconvenient. And you need to take care of yourself now. You know, we don't even think that way, hopefully. You know, most of the time. I'd say most of the time. At 4 a.m. and with a newborn, it might be different. But, you know, you do it anyway, don't you? You still deal with the crying baby. So, you know, so this is the thing, is that we have a habit of thinking it's either or, us or them, me or you. And the Buddha said, this is the heart of our ignorance. This grasping at the self of ourselves or others, as if somehow that's this concrete thing. It's actually, we take care of each other. You know, it's very interdependent. So our care for others, if we're being self-aware, does not harm us at all. Can it tire us out? Yes. But our mind really taking care of, okay, at the end of my life, am I going to look back on these different things and be content with how I responded? Or am I going to feel like the selfish jerk that I often am? You probably but we need, yeah, go ahead, Lee.
So the state of mind we're in as we're serving others affect the level of energy. So if we're coming from obligation, I want to look good, and it's more about us, we would drain more.
Mhm.
And we would become more confused.
But you've added
We would
mental
have
suffering on
happiness.
top of it.
But if we're serving from wherever that other place is, it can almost be inexhaustible. Am I going too far in that? Or?
No, yeah. But it's that we have to take baby steps. You know, we do not have unlimited resources at this moment. But have you ever been in like an emergency situation or something, some catastrophe happens or whatever, you know, and you discover strength you didn't know you had. You didn't think you'd ever be able to go this long or do this or do that, you know. So we limit ourselves ahead of the fact. You know, we just sort of like, don't push the envelope too hard, you know. So we want to be able to push that envelope. We want to stretch, but we also want to know when we got to rest now. It's called the power of relinquishment. We need that. We need to be able to recognize, I need to rest now so that I can benefit others later. Yeah.
So benefiting myself is benefiting others, benefiting myself. So that gives you the concept of non-duality.
It's not just the concept of non-duality, it's recognizing the interdependence. I mean, it's really interdependent. Our happiness is entirely dependent on others. And not because they give things to us, or they do things for us, or they provide for us, or because, you know, we need companionship.
Or it feels good.
You know, what, I'm sorry?
Or it feels good. Do it because it feels good for me.
But the truth is, that's where happiness comes from. That's the source of our happiness, is others. You know, so again, we've talked about this before. We want to look at the qualities of mind that we admire in others, you know, and whatever, those states of mind like compassion or kindness, patience, or wisdom, you know, and recognize that those qualities we have all those qualities, you know, and we want to nurture them to make them more readily available all the time. You know, what are they dependent on? What has to happen for those qualities to grow? How does that happen?
Just you work on. Just
How
do
does
it.
that happen?
We have to be
You have to
relationship.
decide.
We have to be
Somebody else has to provide an opportunity,
stress, chaos, whatever.
you know? We can't become more generous if nobody needs anything from us. You know? We can't be patient if nothing's happening. It's like, yeah, you could be patient with your computer to update, but gee, big deal, we don't want to, that's not going to cultivate the most, bang for our buck. So it's recognizing that all these conditions that we tend to respond to, it's a problem. I have to fix this problem, is this opportunity to develop these qualities of your heart, of your mind that you admire, that you're grateful for when others demonstrate them to you, that you celebrate in spiritual leaders and teachers and whatever. I mean, we all have, these are friends that we kind of go, wow, they always have something nice to say about someone else, So this idea of us and them is not an effective strategy. It's all us. And so some days we're the ones that are the opportunities for others. Sometimes we need something, and that's the opportunity for someone else to help us or show compassion or be kind or patient or bring their wisdom, So that's why we have to be self-aware. So we know when it's, okay, what do I, do I have the energy in this moment to do this or that or whatever? Or is something arisen that, I'm aware of that, I'm not comfortable. Maybe I need something, What do we have to do in order to let people know we need something?
So,
Yeah. And what does that take? Yeah, it takes some humility. We have to let go of that strong identity with self-sufficiency. We need courage. Why do we need courage? Why? Well, pride can be one.
they might say,
There's a vulnerability, isn't there? Someone might say no. And then what? At least there's always hope if we don't ask. So there has to be this willingness to have our hearts hurt, because people can't always help us, just like we can't always help others, But we want to get better and better at being able to go, it's okay if this person can't help. There's 7 billion more people I can ask. It doesn't have to be this person. But it's, it does kind of require us to stay open, so that we can be aware of what we need and what others might need, so that we can be aware of that, so in addition to balance, we need that give and take. We need to be able to see the benefit of being the one in need and being the one who's helping. Of both parts, it's interdependent. So sometimes the best way we can benefit others is to need something. And not be, think that's weak or, you know. So, and all this starts with, you know, of self-awareness. We need to keep checking in. Oh, what am I noticing about myself? Oh, my shoulders are up here. That might be a clue of something, you know. We want to find out what it's being a clue towards, you know, or we say something sarcastic or impatient. And I go, what's going on here? You know, so we can, you know, ask ourselves, what's getting in the way here of me being a, you know, polite person? So, you know, we just keep checking out. I just realized, you know, that those of you at home, I actually can't see if you raise your hand or anything on the screen. So, you know, if you do have questions or want to speak up, you may have to turn off your mic and say something. So just letting you know, I just kind of realized, you know, I just don't actually, you know, I had to get this close and I'm not going to do that all the time. So, yep. No, it's because I'm old. Yep. And the eyes just, you know, and I have to also see my notes. So my screen's so small. I do. I do know that actually. So, you know, because I do go like this sometimes. Anyway, I digress. So we've been talking, you know, this year, we've been thinking about, you know, how everything comes from the mind, considering that, investigating that, exploring that, how all phenomena are dependent. You know, that this isn't just true of, you know, little babies. It's true of everything. Everything is dependent on causes and conditions or on its parts or on, you know, but the main thing it's dependent upon is language and conception, you know. That's why we want to look at our concepts, look at the way we think, recognizing when we're doing that us or them kind of thinking. That all things change constantly. But we come from a place as if things don't change constantly. We grasp after things as if they exist in a particular way, preferably the way we like. You know? So we're, you know, because we're holding on to things, we're constantly startled when things change. You know, like today, you know, that happy, cheerful coworker comes in grumpy and you know, not so nice. And we're kind of startled, you know, or we go to get our cup of coffee out of the coffee pot, you know, and it's empty because it's stopped working, you know, inconveniently overnight while you didn't know it. And so now you don't have your coffee first thing in the morning. You know, the things are constantly actually changing. And anytime we're surprised by something like that, we know we've been grasping that things are permanent. They don't change. You know? And this comes from this mindset of thinking that things are going to be the way we expect them to be, as opposed to just being open to whatever is moment to moment. Instead of having that expectation. And in some ways, if you look deeply, you can see that having that expectations is about, you know, just being caught up in your own stuff. You know, you're just thinking, you're not really thinking about anything else around you. So you just expect that all to be the same. So we're surprised when, oh, it's not the same. Because that interrupts that conversation we're having in our head about, oh, my day and what's going to happen or what I want or what, you know, blah, blah, blah. So this, you know, this developing a mind that's just, oh, let's see. Let's see what happens from moment to moment. Yes.
So just because of the field I'm in, you'll hear people from a self-help perspective say, have no expectations. However, research shows having expectations on children and expectations actually creates more performance, people to evolve, to be better than they could have been. So it's more grasping on it has to look like that, but it's the expectation itself is not a bad thing unless we're grasping and need it. Is that be accurate or?
Yeah, it's kind of tricky because I don't know the jargon in your field, you know. As parents, you have a particular responsibility, right? You are trying to help train someone to function in the world. And we want to do that with ourselves. So having, these, like I want to become enlightened for the benefit of all sentient beings. We want to just encourage an attitude that is trusting that things can be better. We can get stronger. We can get more adept at this. We can, blah, blah, blah. Our heart can expand and keep expanding. But what is that dependent upon? Change. So grasping at things to be one way, doesn't work, first of all, because everything's changing. So that grasping itself is a state of suffering. It's a mind of suffering.
So basically, we're talking here about maybe subtle difference between expecting something and grasping what the result that we expect, and then hope. I mean, confusing, right? So yeah, expectations and grasping really lead to disappointment and suffering if we don't get what we want.
Which also, you see, this is the thing about Buddhism. Even if we get what we want,
we will suffer. Because
it's the suffering of change.
but
So you're out of luck.
So the goal in my mind would be just have no expectations, like go through years and years of not sleeping because of my children, and don't expect them ever to,
Why are you losing
be
sleep
great.
over it?
Sorry,
Why are you losing sleep over it?
because they don't let me sleep. They wake
Yeah,
up.
so you are grasping at,
Right. So
yeah. So this is the thing, right? It's like, so this thing about expectations, as parents, you want to guide your children. So you may have to kind of say, well, I expect this or that. But really, when we're dealing with each other and even with our children, the expectation should be on us. I want, and it's, I want to be kinder. I want to use better speech. I want to be more other oriented rather than self-focused, But, we don't, the trouble with expectations is that can affect how we feel about someone or something. That's the grasping part. I don't like the word expectation at all. I'm sorry they use it in psychology. I just think it's kind of a loaded term, because it's like you must fulfill this in order to, I don't know what. So we want to check what we're holding people to.
And what is what motivates me to sit on a cushion and,
Happiness.
happiness of sitting on a cushion,
No, just happiness.
but in the future or in
Yeah.
this moment or moment by moment?
Yeah, this moment, future moments.
but I don't feel happy.
And so what are you focusing on then? Yeah. So what are you focusing on then? Training your mind?
I mean, that's my desire, motivation, why I actually start, but during it, I must have
Yeah. So you're practicing, how can I suffer more? How can I focus on, the pain in my knees or the pain in my back or the pain or how boring it is, blah, 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 blah. So you've totally forgotten your motivation, staying focused on your motivation, If the stillness is driving you crazy, you have to take baby steps. So do walking meditation. Focus then. So your body's moving, so it's not like stuck in one painful position. But you've got to focus on, what am I really trying to do here? If I'm trying to work on not having the habit of always just looking at what others need to do and not what I need to do, like meditation should be a lot more comfortable than this, and I totally get it. It's not that I don't experience exactly the same thing. It's just that I recognize that that's not the point. And I have to do things like train myself in remembering that, this is as good as it gets. Because tomorrow I'll be older and it'll be harder. And my knee will hurt more, not less. So I might as well enjoy this moment. That's not tomorrow. And I'm really sorry. This is why, our wise parents used to say, youth is wasted on the young, because they think back and think, I wish I'd appreciated how easy everything was to my young body, because it isn't that way now, So we don't want to keep repeating that mistake, But it really is about not just sitting there and practicing the mind that you're trying to get rid of, which is focusing on the suffering and not the suffering of others. The suffering of ourselves. So sometimes we need extreme measures. First of all, we just need to keep trying, and quit, but I have to use extreme measures when I'm in situations where I feel a lot of physical pain. I have to remind myself of things like there are people being tortured right this moment, whose dependence on staying still is what's being, keeping them from someone shooting them. Because they're hiding in the, in the jungle or behind or the city or wherever, and they don't want to be heard by the soldier that's, aiming the guns for them, So sometimes we have to, and people survive those moments, right? We have the capacity to do these things. We need to recognize that our habits of mind are torturing us. And if we work on them, we will suffer less. And so it's very worthwhile tolerating this or that in order to have the conditions to help work on our mind. So, and I don't know what your obstacles are. We all have different, and usually it changes. So we need to be aware of that, and we need to kind of modify. But we can also just go, it'll pass. This discomfort it doesn't stay the same. That's what's so funny is if you focus on the actual pain, not focusing on the fact my knee hurts, that's different. That concept of my knee hurts is different than just focusing on the pain. Because if you focus on the pain, you might discover it shifts. Have you ever focused on an itch because you're not in a situation where you can scratch it? And then you finally get to scratch it. What can happen next?
Move somewhere else.
Yeah, move somewhere else. And so you finally learn like, I just have to quit wanting to scratch it. And maybe I'll forget about it. And you do. So we need to keep these things in mind when we're fighting the discipline of practice. That it's torturous. Because sometimes it feels that way. It's like when you're trying to practice kind speech and something, someone's really just continuing to press your buttons, and you're thinking in your mind, don't say anything, you might have to just keep thinking, don't say anything. It's just kind of tedious and boring and, whatever. But we're trying to train ourselves into changing habits of just getting what we want when we want it. We're trying to change thinking that harsh speech is somehow going to make us happy. So we need to find these points of resistance and try to work with that. So we can do that when we're sitting quietly, and just thinking about, okay, so when I finally said that not so nice remark to so-and-so, how could that have unfolded differently? What was it that made me just want to have to say something to end the conversation? We need to see what it is that's making us so uncomfortable that we think it's okay to harm someone else with our words. Maybe they're harming us with their words. So how can we make that not harm us? What do we think? What's our knee-jerk reaction to that? Someone's harming you. What do we need to do? I'm sorry?
Stick up for yourself.
Stop them. Okay. Now there's certain circumstances, of course, that's, so, but sometimes stopping them means you leave, because you can't control that. Sometimes stopping them means you call the police. But sometimes stopping them is in our minds. We look at the words that they're saying that we see is so harmful, and we examine them. Is there any truth to those words? So what if there's truth to those words? What can we do with that? You can apologize to them. That's right. What if there's no truth to those words? Yeah. And you go, oh, I don't have to worry about this. That's not true. Now, can you prove that to them? Probably not. But, maybe it's an occasion for a beneficial conversation, but maybe not. Mostly is that we can let go of thinking that that these words mean anything. This habit of thinking we have to defend every moment. It's exhausting. If someone's always treating us that way, maybe we just don't continue the relationship. If you can't have conversations again, I don't know. But mainly, it's amazing is if we don't get hooked. And then it becomes a back and forth. Was there something? Okay. Okay. Okay, bye, Ling. Sorry to miss you. So what we're going to try to be looking at of these weeks is, specific types of things and how can we look at it from a different perspective of the mind? How can we, use our understanding of the mind to help us with that? How can we use our understanding of karma to help us with that? how can we use our understanding of things being empty, of inherent existence? How can that help us? You know, how can we understand that, the different teachings we've received, how can this improve our ability to just suffer less in every moment? Now, can we succeed in suffering less in every moment?
Eventually.
Eventually. That's a key word. Eventually. So, none of this is like you can magically make everything better by changing, your mindset. Things still erupt. There's certain things, like I was telling people yesterday that, I'm getting ready to go to India for a couple of weeks, and it really makes me crazy. I'm really, really anxious about it for lots of different reasons, and nothing you can say will make me feel better about it, because it isn't about reason. It's about just fear, and when that fear arises, I'm just neurotic about it, and it's quite embarrassing to be a Buddhist nun and be this neurotic about it. It's like, oh, have I done any work in these 25 years? We all have stuff that we're not going to succeed at over time. Oh, well, but if we're really, really, really observant, we'll notice we actually have gotten better about it, and it's just, so we need to be kind with ourselves, and we need to use the strategies we've developed to cope with these things, So when you're trying to practice, one of the things we need to do is recognize, oh, this is a big step, not a baby step. Maybe I need to take a smaller step, and not dive into everything as if you should be able to fix it by changing, have immediate results. Yeah.
So if you share there.
Okay, so one of the things I'm doing to manage it is taking care of the things I can do so that I don't have those also worrying me. Like I had to fill out, this, 10-page visa application. And then you have to, there's all this kind of stuff, just the busyness of it all. Then I had to, look at the recommended packing list and be grateful I had a recommended packing list from people who'd gone before, and see, oh, do I have those things? And just do some things I could manage so that I'd, so I think, oh, well, I can do this. I can do this. Now, I've traveled. So it's not, so it feels really weird to have this horrible, fear arise, and then I have to sit there going, okay, that's enough today. I can't handle one more decision about this. I can't think about it for one more minute, I also don't give myself permission not to go until somebody get on the plane. That's my backup plan, is I don't actually have to get on the plane. I can bail out at the last second. I'm not likely to do that, but that's why I make that the strategy, So it's like I used to have to take drugs to get on planes, but I very early on decided, oh, I don't need to take those drugs on the way back because I'm coming home. So I suffer a little more, that's okay, but to get me on the plane to go was much harder. So, it's about being able to find the things you can manage, Also, it's about this awareness. I am not having a heart attack. I am just anxious. And you just chill out. You're not about to die. You just feel like you're about to die. It's very embarrassing. That makes me feel more anxious. So I have to sit there going, get over yourself. It's okay that you're this nervous. That's, it's not about flying.
Is it your first trip?
It's my first trip to India. Yes. There's a reason for that. I've been delaying it. So anyway, so like I said, it has nothing to do with reason. I traveled back and forth to Australia for, years. So it's just, it's not reasonable.
It's temporary. Yes, never's feelings.
Yeah, it's totally temporary. And that's one thing I can, that's an expectation that I can trust. You know, it will end. They'll be after the trip, and I'm laughing at myself for before the trip. You know,
Would you be moving around a lot or staying
Yeah.
in one place?
why? Why do you want to know those details?
I just think that, you know.
Are you trying to fix it?
No.
You promise?
The young people though, going from place to place often makes a person.
Trust me, this is, you know, this has nothing based in reason. It's like when I was living in Australia and had a terror of the snakes. And everybody would go, well, you know, if you do this, you know, you're not likely to see them. Going, you think that's going to do a thing to my mind at this moment? You know, no, sorry. You know, thanks for the offer.
So what is it
Don't bring
based
up the word snake.
on? What is it based on?
What is it? My ignorance. You know, my holding myself as somehow something that needs to be defended, protected. Underneath it all, it's a fear of something bad happening to me. You know, it's nebulous. Is that a word?
Yes.
Does it mean kind of
It's a word.
unsure, uncertain? I was an English major, can you tell? So,
Venerable,
yes.
we
Oh,
have
yeah.
a couple
Question.
of questions.
Yeah, please.
Thanks.
Someone go
Yeah.
first.
Yeah, hi, Venerable Tendron. I just wanted to say your fear of going to India is extremely similar because I have to move to Florida in a couple of months, and I have been completely distorted into a pretzel where my friends are not even talking to me about it anymore. And I have come up with every single fear that I could possibly bring up in my head. And now I feel completely paralyzed by my mind over it.
Yep. Yep. And that's why we must try to work with these things, because we can get ourselves stuck. You know? So one thing that we don't want to practice is, what's the word? Rumination. That rehearsal of it again and again and again. That's why you have to give yourself limits. I mean, that's what I have to do. You know, if it's anxiety, I have to say, okay, you can have 5 more minutes of anxiety and that's it. That's enough for this hour or this day or whatever, you know? And so then the next time I go, okay, just set it aside. I'm not there yet. It's not happening now. You know, you have to work with these things. We have to recognize we might need therapy. You know, it's really trying to understand that if we're going anyway, you know, then this constant thinking about all the ways in which we're afraid, you know, is not helping. So it's, you know, we need to turn it off. And we need to turn it off again. And then again. It doesn't just stop. It's that when it arises, you kind of go, okay, not going there. I wish it was, obviously, I wish it was easier. It'd be so nice if it was easier, you know, but this is what we're contending with. Our habits of mind are forceful. The Buddha says we've been cultivating them since beginningless time. Who knows why I'm afraid of going to India? You know, maybe I was imprisoned in India in a previous life. Who knows? You know, it has nothing, you know, I mean, who knows? It just is happening to me, you know, and I can let it defeat me by taking over my life, or I can try to, you know, recognize that I can at least not constantly remind myself of it. Go for a walk, go for a run, go for any, you know, do something else.
I have a question.
Yes, please.
So earlier you mentioned once you notice this big fear and anxiety, you question whether or not have I even done any work on this, like, and you were embarrassed by it. And then you said when you're more observant, you actually do notice it. What do you mean, like noticing the small wins kind of thing?
Mhm. I do mean that. I mean, realizing that there was a time when I wouldn't be aware that my fear was unreasonable, for example. You know, you know, sort of like, no, I promise you it makes sense. There are good reasons why I'm so afraid of this. And that's not true, you know? So I really recognize that now. I also recognize that that physical aspect that comes up with fear, we actually can manage, you know? If we, you know, allow ourselves to breathe, you know, try to, you know, relax those muscles, do a, you know what, a squat, a wall squat really helps with blood pressure. Not very good at it, it won't take very long. But, you know, there are things we can do to help us, you know, bring it down a notch. Now, I'm embarrassed to admit that I found this out by years ago. I was having anxiety attacks badly. I think it must have been when I was going through a divorce, you know, and I was just freaking out. And so I went to the doctor to find out if I was, you know, so I wore a heart monitor for a few days and found out, no, there's nothing wrong with you. And then I go, oh, I'm really not having a heart attack here. But it was new for me to have that kind of fear. So, but I, you know, I just found out, I made sure those kind of things can help, is just realizing, you know, and knowing that other people get afraid too can help, you know, but none of it just makes it go away. You know, we just have to, you know, it's sort of like, okay, I accept this frailty that I'm experiencing, you know, and, you know, work with it. I don't want it to stop me from going. I have an opportunity to go see His Holiness teach, you know. I don't want it to stop me from going. It might, you know, that might happen. So this again is coming back to my intention, my motivation. I really want to go, and I want to go for good reasons. You know, His Holiness is older than I am. He doesn't travel as much. You know, this might be my last chance to see him in person. You know, those reasons might not matter to you, but they matter to me. And why do I want to do it? Because I want to continue to be inspired in my practice.
I believe you. I'm convinced you've convinced me that you're very capable of doing a great job.
There you go. And sometimes it helps to find, you know, to hear from others that you can handle this. You know? And what's really nice too is, like I said, I can get to the plane and not go. I can get to India and go, I'm going back. You can get to Florida and you can leave. You know, I mean, really, it doesn't mean there wouldn't be hardships. Doesn't mean it wouldn't be difficult. But we're not as stuck as we think we are. You know, we need to give ourselves permission to see the door. You know, we might not go through it. We might not need to open it, but we need to know that we can change the situation again. You know, I mean, it's just, you know. So, yeah, Nicole.
Well, isn't it helpful to really recognize that we have a choice instead of having to, you know, because we do have this idea, I have to do this, I have to do this. And we really maybe want to reevaluate that.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's
there may be
really
good
helpful for me.
there may be good reasons why you're having this kind of question mark, you know, so you want to investigate that. Maybe there's a good reason not to do this or not do that. And that's why from the beginning of planning this trip, of seeing, even knowing that this might be an opportunity, and all through this period of time of being able to kind of say to myself, you know, it's okay if you don't go, you know, just to have that as an option. So my self-worth is not dependent upon whether I go or not. Your view of me might be. That's your problem. That's not my problem. You know, So we need to understand these things that, you know, if I'm going to prove to you I can, that's a setup, you know, because then I've taken away my choice. So it's, so anyway, I can't talk about it anymore because I'm starting to shake. So, you know, it's time for me to move on from this topic. So I'm not having a heart attack.
Thank you for using your vulnerability to teach us.
Yeah. I'm so happy to have done that. I opened the door. So, all right. This process of trying to get a handle on our minds and our thoughts and our concepts and recognizing when we've got faulty thinking going on and that we need to interrupt it for our own sake and for those around us, you know, is not easy. Some things are easy. Sometimes when you see yourself making yourself suffer, you can kind of go, oh, just let go of that. You know, you can just see the conversation in your mind making yourself sick, you know, and you can kind of go, because it's no big deal. You know, whatever what we see is the source of that, you know, like the delay at the cash register or something, no big deal, you know, but but we need to also respect that we suffer. And we suffer because we don't know what we're doing. We think that we are chasing happiness, but we're actually chasing, you know, we're creating the causes for suffering. You know? And so we have limits, and we don't, you know, we need to, it takes time to develop new habits. It takes time. And we already have a lot of good habits. I mean, it's not like we're starting from scratch, but, you know, we need to recognize that the change of these things, of our habits of mind, is challenging, and it can take time, you know, and that's okay, because you're headed in the direction you want to go. If you keep just going, I can't do it, you'll never do it, you know, because you've told yourself you can't do it. So we want to watch those kinds of thinking and kind of catch ourselves. Oh, maybe that's not true. Maybe I can do it. I just don't know how yet. You know, leaving those doors open. We're out of time. Thank goodness. I need to go relax now. Rest. So anyway, all these chat things. Did I cover anything that? Okay. All right. So now we want to kind of bring to mind what we were thinking about at the beginning, you know, our motivation or just whatever. And we want to just think about any kind of positive, you know, like light that we experienced, you know, like, oh yeah, I can, you know, something, you know, even just in that might be just your motivation at the beginning, you know, just like, oh yeah, that's right. I want to benefit others. How lovely. It's a lovely thought. Well, so according to the Buddhist teachings, thinking in those positive ways about caring for others, having compassion for others, having love for others is is a cause for positive things in our future. So, so what we're trying to do in our dedication prayers is give those benefits to others. We can't actually do that, but it's a mind training to help us, be thinking that way, not just, oh, I just want all the goodies for myself. I hope this ripples out to benefit others. So, all right. So we'll recite this prayer on page 246 or 44 or something, 246, I think. May all beings everywhere, plagued by sufferings of body and mind, obtain an ocean of happiness and joy by virtue of my merits. May living creatures suffer, commit evil, or ever fall ill. May no one be afraid or belittled with a mind weighed down by depression. May the blind see forms and the deaf hear sounds. May those whose bodies are worn with toil be restored and finding repose. May the naked find clothing, the hungry find food. May the thirsty find water and delicious drinks. And forlorn find, and happiness and prosperity. May rains and bountiful harvest. May all medicines be effective and wholesome prayers bear fruit. May all who are sick and ill quickly be freed from their ailments. Whatever diseases there are in the world, may they never occur again. May the frightened cease to be afraid and those bound be freed. May the powerless find power and may people think of benefiting each other. For as long as space remains, for as long as sentient beings remain, until then, may I too remain to dispel the miseries of the world. I'm gonna go page 246 for the long night prayer of His Holiness, the Dalai Lama. 244. Okay. In the land encircled by snow mountains, you are the source of all happiness and good. All powerful Chenrezi, Tenzin Gyatso, please remain until samsara ends. Then on page 234.
232
Okay,
or on the board.
or on the board. So the, I'm sorry, 234 in the prayer book. If you've got, it's not always on. Is that correct?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
She's fine. And she's.
Oh, no, I'm sorry, not.
Good. There it goes.
There we are. Okay, so this is a prayer for the swift return of Lama Zopa Rinpoche. Fearless teacher and assembly of the children of the victorious ones, Shravakas and Pratyeka Buddhas, victorious Lozan, father and son, along with the lineage masters, all the objects of refuge of infinite lands, please bestow the virtue and goodness of accomplishing this prayer here and now, holding and spreading the Muni's precious and complete teachings through explanation and practice. You wore the armor of patience that is never discouraged. Incomparable venerable Guru, to you I make request. While striving single-pointedly for the sake of the victorious one's teachings, the sole gateway through which all benefit and happiness emerge, and for mother sentient living beings, you suddenly departed to peace. What a great loss. Nevertheless, through the undeceiving truth of the blessings of the ocean of the three jewels and the great ways of bodhicitta of the children of the victorious ones, may the smile of a reincarnation swiftly beam in glory for fortunate disciples. Okay, and by the way, if you like Arpita, if you want to talk about this further about your anxiety over Florida, I might not be able to help at all. But feel free to email me. My email address is just tendron108@yahoo.com. So anybody feel free to just email me, and if it doesn't go to spam, I'll get back to you. So
Yeah, that sounds good. Thank you.
yeah, if I don't reply, that may be the problem. Send it again. So I try to reply.
Yeah, thank you for that offer. Thank you for that offer.
Oh, sure.
I really appreciate it. And, I have 3 choices: Charlotte, North Carolina, Austin, Texas, or Orlando, Florida, or anywhere in Florida, because I actually have a physical therapist license there. But problem is,
You can just come take care of me.
there we go. Yeah,
Not that I can pay you.
I'll come to India with you. I was born there.